Alrighty, welcome back. And we just talked about some of the breakout players on the offensive side of the ball for the 2024 season. Some guys that I really do think are going to burst onto the scene and could make some huge plays for their teams if they are going to make a playoff run. Now, let's talk about some guys in 2025 that could be on the head coaching market. Now, a couple of these guys are already head coaches, but as we've seen throughout this cycle, anything can happen in the last little bit. So maybe this is for 2024 still, who knows? But these are some guys that going into the 2024 season, I think could raise their stock a ton and already have pretty high stocks, but could absolutely be in line for a big time head coaching position in a year. So let's start with a guy that maybe not a lot of people know. I think there are some niche college football fans that are very into this guy, but Alex Golish, the head coach over at South Florida, has done just an incredible job in the last year of being at that program. He was the OC of the 2022 Tennessee offense, so was a huge part of Hendon Hooker being as successful as he was, and he probably should have gotten an invite to uh, New York City, excuse me, but that injury did get in the way. But the dude has an incredible track record across pretty much all of his jobs. He was the tight end coach at Iowa State when guys like Charlie Kohler were there, and then obviously the Tennessee offense. But what he did last season at USF is just remarkable. He had a six win improvement in his first year, something that not a lot of people are able to pull off at any level of the sport, which is just incredible. And then the cherry on top was beating Syracuse 45-0 in their bowl game, which is just insane. It's the biggest blowout they've had in a bowl game in their history, and he's one of those guys that you might not know now, and maybe people are wondering if that South Florida team was a flash in the pan or not. But in 365 days, everyone's going to know his name. Everyone's going to either want him to be their head coach or want him to be a part of their staff. And I think a team that could possibly be making a call his way is Florida. Now, Billy Napier is still the head coach there. Don't worry about that. He is going to be up against it, though, this year. There are a lot of people speculating that he might not be there come 2025, and I got to be honest, I tend to agree with them. I think it's a remarkably hard schedule that he's going to have to go through, and the setup that they have is just not ideal when you're in the SEC. So it's definitely possible that Alex Golish is one of those guys that gets a call. Now, they might not want to go back to the group of five route, but this is a guy that I definitely would go to the group of five route for. He is just incredible and can't wait to see what he does in 2024 and going forward. Another guy that might be a little bit under the radar right now, but I think will be plenty known in a year is Brennan Marion. He was the wide receiver coach at Texas a couple of years ago during Sark's first 2 years there. And during his college days, actually was an elite receiver at Tulsa, leads the all-time college football record for most yards per reception at like 36. So the dude was an absolute deep threat during his time. And I think the one thing that really stands out to him, at least since I've been kind of following him, is all of his players seem to love him. All of his players seem to play harder because of him, because they believe in him so much. Another guy like Tashard Choice at Texas, who just galvanizes his guys in such a way that they want to go out and do their best because they know their coach is giving his best every single day. And I think he's someone that if you got in a room with him and started interviewing him for a head coaching job, you'd have a really hard time letting him leave the building because he speaks with so much passion. He is so set on the way that he does things, and it's just it's incredible to hear him talk. Really, it's someone that I admire a lot in this space, and I think is going to be a name that explodes over the next couple of years. He is currently actually in the conversation for the UCLA offensive coordinator, I think that would be a great hire. Now, I tend to think that there will be a head coaching job out there for Brennan Marion this time next year. So it's a weighing of options for him, right? You could take the job and be in one of those stable conferences, and obviously it is a step up going from UNLV to UCLA. But he could take a massive step up a year from now if you were to stay at UNLV and they followed up a trip to the Mountain West Championship with actually winning it and being a remarkable offense with that go-go offense that he runs, which tends to employ two running backs, which just makes them so multiple and so hard to defend. And one of those guys that I just one of my favorite coaches in all of college football, and very excited to see what he can do. Another guy that is a little bit under the radar, but won't be for much longer, is Buster Faulkner, the OC at Georgia Tech. He's done an incredible job as just a year at Georgia Tech, led Haynes King to be the passing touchdown leader in the ACC a year ago, and he came over from Georgia actually to Georgia Tech when Brent Key was hired, and during his time at UGA, it was said that he was kind of Stetson Bennett's right-hand man on game day. He was the guy that would sit down with him and go through game tape and try to fix some things. So definitely a guy that has a great track record behind him, has a ton of football knowledge, and will have every chance to increase his stock in 2024 with tons of guys coming back on that Tech offense that were huge helps a year ago, including Haynes King, but also Eric Singleton on the outside. All of those guys to play with. He does an incredible job of getting them all open and putting them all in the right position. And I can't wait to see what he can do in 2024. He was up for the Middle Tennessee State job for a time, but decided to not take that. And I think that was probably the right decision because I think there's a big job out there just waiting for him in 2025. So excited to see what he can do. And now another head coach that's at the Group of Five level, G.J. Kenny at Texas State, the head coach there. Same type of vibes as Alex Golish, a little bit less experience under his belt in the grand stage of things, was at Incarnate Word before taking over at Texas State. But the dude can recruit his butt off. He's just incredible. He's gotten two very good quarterbacks in his 2 years there. T.J. Finley a year ago, and got Jaden DeLora from the portal this year. Both guys are just uber talented. Now, Jaden DeLora coming in did come at the expense of TJ Finley leaving, which is an interesting way to run a program, but from a pure football perspective, this guy is still very, very talented. He went 7-5 his first year at Texas State, and that might not sound great, but the reality is the past two coaches at Texas State have gone and combined 20 and 63. So total flip in not only culture but in the overall football play. So interested to see what the market will look like for him in a year. I think an offensive coordinator job big school could definitely be on the horizon for him. An OC big school right now that could be moving to the head coaching this year is Alex Atkins down at Florida State. One of the best play callers in all of the country. Obviously, the Jordan Travis injury did not help, but Jordan Travis was well on his pace to go to New York City, and Alex Atkins had as much to do with that as anyone. I think even you would be surprised how well he did at the circumstances of what they had. They did not have a lot to work with, and he found a way to include Wildcats, to include really weird sets to just keep them in games, and that's all you could really ask for him from that point. He does a great job, in my mind, of basic game, which is something that all elite play callers do really well, whether it's picking your moments to go no huddle and go up pace, or picking your moments to go into a huddle and kind of play around with the defensive sets. It makes it incredibly hard for the defense to know how to, I guess, going throughout the game, because he'll call one play and hurry up and slow it down, then hurry right back up. It's just the confusion that will make for a defense is just insane. So I think his future holds a lot of, or will be tied a lot to this FSU against the ACC conversation, because if Florida State has to stay in the ACC, I could see him trying to get to the SEC. If Florida State is able to find their way into another conference, maybe stay there for a little bit longer. But another guy has kind of gotten a little bit comfortable in his position, and it's one of the best positions to be in, is Glenn Schumann, the DC at UGA. I've noticed something with and this happened at Alabama as well, but it's happening at Georgia now where if you're defensive coordinator under Kirby Smart, you don't get the credit that you deserve, just as a general rule, because Kirby is obviously remarkable, one of the best defensive minds in the sport, maybe the best after Nick Saban called today. So all of these guys that are defensive coordinators for him make it a little bit hard to be as seen as they probably should be because they feel like Kirby holds so much power on that defensive game plan, and of course he does. He's Kirby Smart, but I think Glenn Schumann is a huge part of those defenses that they put together. Even before he was defensive coordinator and was the linebacker coach, a huge part of those defenses they put together. He's on the Dan Lanning track, right? Georgia defensive coordinator that bides his time, has a lot of really good defenses, and then just explodes on the scene at a different school. I think it's something that will be happening sometime soon. Now, I talked about it at the beginning. He's in a very good position right now. Being the defensive coordinator at Georgia right now is not too shabby of a position. So I wonder how much he has a desire to change his pace and to change his position. But I think if the right job came along, like Oregon for Dan Lanning, I think he would take it and run with it. And I think he's just an incredible program builder, an incredible guy to around. So I'm very excited to see what he can do. He's one of the best play callers in the country. I had him here was definitely the running back coach, and he just got hired at Georgia State this morning. So I was a little late to that party, but he is a new talented guy that absolutely will give Georgia State a little bit of juice going into this spring that has been tumultuous to say the least. We'll take a short break here, and then Thursday. We'll be what I'm going to say this next segment, but I think there were some people that will actually really like this one. This is somewhat of a fun take, but we will be right back and stick with us.